Okay, quick update. This is the euro yen from, it was a trade yesterday. The HL30 here worked out fine. We just closed a trade here on the euro yen. I'm sorry, the dollar yen. This was another HL30, and I'll talk about that in just a moment here. We've got today's pivot point down here is resetting at 111.34 on this particular chart. Yours might show a little bit something different, but again, got to be careful though. I mean, HL30. Remember, we're taking relatively small stop loss. I mean, small stop loss, small profits. We're not expecting a whole lot. This is somewhat choppy in here. Um, there's certainly, I mean, more room to go, but we've always got to take profits to because you never know where it's going to stop and turn around. Another update, though, of what I want to talk about here is the Bitcoin dollar. So we broke through 10,000 just over an hour ago, and we're still holding. Now, I want to talk about this because this is a 1 hour time frame, by the way. So I want to talk about this because the question is like how the stop loss. Okay, so we're talking about trailing stop. A lot of people are using uh, different strategies, different methods. Some people will use a moving average. In the past, years ago, I used to use a moving average. It was a on a 15-minute chart for a stop loss. I've done different things, different methods, and different techniques, and the one that I've always been the most comfortable with, and has always kept me into the trades and given me more information. Right? It's just ultimately it's given me a better understanding of what I was looking at, what the market was actually doing, what price was actually doing, rather than being more concerned about my own uh, pain tolerance, right? My threshold. How much money do I not want to lose on these trades? Like, what is my maximum? Very often, and I did this in the beginning of my trading career, I would sit there and stare at my trading platform, and I'd think, oh my God, I'm down like $200 or $3,000 or whatever it was that I was trading, whatever size, whatever position, and that was enough to put enough pressure on me where the number itself was what would cause me to close the trade rather than the information and the behavior, what's going on here on the charts. So you'll notice here, again, this is a 1 hour time frame. You'll notice here these different X's, and these are marking specific pullbacks and things like that, and what I think is most significant, and at least to me, right? And this is based on the behavior over and over and over again after all these years using this. And I'm going to show you this basic principle on the. This is the MetaTrader platform, so I'll show you the S&P here daily in just a moment. But so the question was, if you're going to be using a trailing stop, are you going to be using like a moving average, or are you using support and resistance? Support, lows, pullbacks, things like that. And I would much rather look for significant clues here in price. And very often, what I do when it's available, and here's the thing, is that what I'm about to share with you isn't always going to present itself. It's not always available. And when it's not, then you do the best you can, or you wait. You wait and you give whatever it is that you're trading more time to move around and create those opportunities that make more sense, right? You can look at a chart and it'll look confusing and choppy and then come back either a day later or maybe another session later. And then all of a sudden it starts to make more sense. And then sometimes it doesn't even make sense after a day or two. You've got to wait even more time. You just have to wait. And that's one of the advantages to being able to day trade, and being able to day trade other things, other currency pairs, other gold futures, oil futures, whatever it is that your deal is, whatever you want to trade, a Bitcoin, you get more opportunities. You're not sitting there staring at one currency pair saying that's my favorite and I only want to trade that. I did that, and there were times when it didn't give me an opportunity. Yet because I was there and I wanted to make money every day, I'd start forcing trades even though I didn't really get a valid signal. It didn't make any sense, and I would start losing trades on those trades because I shouldn't have been trading it to begin with. So when I talk about these clues, I'm going to open up the charts here, one more click here, and see if this helps. Yeah, there we go. So you'll notice these lows, and it just keeps, it'll take out a new high, a relative relatively new high and then keep moving. So it's a decent trend. It's not going to stop anytime soon. I mean, it could maybe in the next 10, 15 minutes and sharply come back down with somebody's comment. That's the way it is, right? That's the nature of Bitcoin. Sometimes we'll just get these big corrections, these big pullbacks, I should call them. But anyway, this is what I draw my attention to. This is a 1 hour time frame. So if I was looking at a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute chart, if I saw multiple times that it seemed to be stopping right at a specific support level or even a resistance level, I want to notice that. The smaller the time frame, the less I think it's not as important as if I was to be using, like, for example, a 1 hour time frame. When you look at the entire session, right? If you're trading futures, you only have so many hours. If you're trading a Forex, you're trading from session to session, and it just keeps rolling over until Friday, right? It just keeps moving. Price keeps going, is what I'm getting at. So a 1 hour time frame is a really good time frame to get a good picture, in my opinion, of what's going on if you're going to day trade. I'm not talking about a position where you're like an investor and you're holding for a few months, or even then it still gives you a good idea. But what I'm talking about is day trading, getting in, getting out, trying to use a relatively small stop loss, and then picking specific targets that are realistic. They're achievable. Price is likely to move and cover that distance based on the information, based on the news, based on the participation, the volume, all of that. It's likely to move to that distance. And then you take your profits at those trades within that range, within that distance that price can move for that day, right? Daily average trading ranges, want to be aware of that for specific currency pairs that you're trading. Some currency pairs move in wider ranges than others, all of that. So you want to be aware of all of that. You want to know what it is that you're trading and be aware of that. But the 1 hour time frame, I keep going back to this, the 1 hour time frame is going to give me good, accurate information. And it could be also, the reason why it works so well for me is because that's what I've adjusted to. That's what I have always used. And because I kept applying it, I could see patterns. Maybe, somebody else is used to just trading off of a 15-minute chart, not going anything higher than a 30. They're going to have to make that transition. They're going to have to look at it a little bit differently. But to me, the 1 hour time frame really, really works. And very often, it will give me clues just like this. To me, 3 hours of price holding and sitting here, that's a pretty significant support level. Now, let's just say, for example, if this was the euro dollar and it was during the New York session and it was an hour after 8:30 New York time economic data, right? And then we saw a support level. That, to me, once again, if price was going to rally, would give me an indication that this is a pretty good solid support level. And if price was going to move up and then turn around and come back down and I was looking for an opportunity to sell this pair, I would want to see a candle close below a significant support level. Significant to me is 1, 2, 3 times. 3 hours here as opposed to this spike low right there. That spike low is pretty close to that spike low, but you can see just how different the behavior is right here. This solidifies, in my mind, this support level. Now, if, for example, a candle was to come down here and finally close below that support level right here with these 3 touches here to this relatively solidified support level here in my mind, in my opinion, if a candle closed below that support level, I still need more information. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to see a new trend direction and that it's going to go down a lot deeper. It could, but then at that point, even if it was a signal to sell, I would still want more information. I would still want the specific entry. So, for example, with the continuation breakout trade, one of the reasons that I used that 3-pip entry was that sometimes candles will close above or below support, and then they still become or turn into a head fake, and they turn around and go back down the opposite direction. And you'll notice that when that happens, it didn't move up more than 3 pips on the next candle. It usually won't, especially if you do it right. So if the signal candle, if there's some divergence, and then you see price move up more than 3 pips, then that wasn't a qualified continuation signal candle anyway. You shouldn't have even been doing it, even if it moved up 3 pips, right? You have to do everything right on the signal candle, and then you have to do everything right on the entry. There are 2 different things. So the signal and the confirmation, all of that is designed to keep me out of trouble. I claim that 95% of the time the continuation breakout trade is accurate, but the way that I was able to improve those results even better and to make sure that I was really zeroing in on what I was doing and focused was also paying attention to the entry. In the past, right, when I was developing the method, when I had the signal and I could confirm the signal with the indicators that I was using and I understood what I was looking at, and I was able to identify the appropriate highs and lows that helped me identify appropriate consolidation ranges anyway. Remember, we don't want to have a consolidation range that's too small either, but I'm not going to go down that path. The entry is what I'm talking about. So then I had to figure out an entry to prevent myself from getting into those head fakes. So again, all I'm trying to say here is that for a trailing stop, I want to find these significant support levels. Up until this level here, where there were these 3 touches here to this support level, it was just all about these little spike lows along the way. But eventually, again, like I said, given enough time, it's going to settle and show you and give you clues like this, things that you can use. So to me, at this point, I would need to see a candle, a 1-hour candle, close below that support level right there, 98.54 on Bitcoin. And even if a 1-hour candle closes below that support, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to turn and come back down. I still need more information when that happens. I would want to see confirmation. I would want to see follow through on the next candle, that kind of thing. Because again, it could be just a pullback and then a bounce. So, but this is, in my opinion, a significant support level, as opposed to just these little spike lows here along the way. And this could all change. This significant support level, depending on how it acts over the next few hours, we could see another possible significant support level, and they'll change my opinion, and this continues in an uptrend, and we'll, just keep following it up higher. Where's it going to go? Well, 15,000 is another round number. The 10,000, Bloomberg, as soon as it hit 10,000 Bitcoin, Bloomberg already adjusted on their homepage and started throwing up different articles about, we see it all the time. Okay. We see it in the Twitter feeds. We see it on Facebook. People start making all these comments. They did it in the summertime when we were trading all the way through, and it was down at like 3,000 and then approached 5,000, and people were still talking about 10,000. I was talking about the possibility of 10,000, and I said that we were going to trade it all the way up to 10,000. If it's going to keep going that way, we're going to keep trading it that way. But a lot of people, they look at all this negative commentary on the internet, and they use that as a tool. They think it's got to happen. There's just so many people talking about it. Something negative, it seems to always have like a pretty solid impact in people's opinions, and then it just keeps floating the opposite direction. And a lot of people that are fighting it, you can see it on a lot of these forums and blogs, and they're trying to sell Bitcoin and short it here. They're gonna end up under a lot of pressure, and they've got to release those trades. They've got to let go of them if they're trying to sell it, and price just keeps going higher. So is it possible that 15,000? 15,000 is a pretty round number. Yes, 12,000 is also another number. But again, deciding not to close out a position or a portion of your position and then trailing it along, we need some method of trailing this trade. Sometimes, and nothing is ever perfect 100% of the time in trading. It doesn't work like that. There's always going to be some kind of mishap, miscalculation, something, the market's going to do something. Nothing works 100% of the time. So even with these technical tools and skills and things like that, every once in a while it's going to just reverse, come back down, and then go right back up again. And we have to anticipate that we just might be stopped out prematurely, and then the trade's done. But we've done so well on this trade since the summer, and when it started to really pick up, even back in April, we've done well. I mean, if that's what closes out the trade and forces us to decide to get out of it and we're done with it, then that's okay too, because at that point it might be too volatile to trade anyway. You get those periods of time where I stay away from it and I can't get into the trades because the pullbacks and the spikes up and down are so severe and so sharp. We really couldn't get away with trading with a small stop loss in there. We would get stopped out prematurely anyway, and we would just do it over and over and over again until it finally broke out and created that trending continuation breakout trade that we see here. So anyway, that's where we're at right now. What are these levels? There was somebody in the summertime, a few analysts that were talking about it, and some people overseas that were talking about Bitcoin reaching 100,000. I don't think that that's an impossibility, but uh, we have to be aware of the signs and what would allow for that opportunity. We'll know it when it's happening, but hopefully we're in a trending move like this anyway as it's happening, and we can continue to trade. I don't even know. I mean, that's just something. It doesn't. It's not. I mean, 10,000 obviously was going to be a lot more realistic than 100,000, but anything's possible at this point, right? Anything's possible. Now, trading some of the other cryptocurrencies, we are going to get involved in that a little bit later, but you can see that some of them, they're not as pricey as Bitcoin right now, but you get a lot of different opportunities. And again, it's the same pattern. It's the same technique and the same system, everything that I'm looking at. Any information that I can get that will help me confirm trending moves and breakouts, because for the most part with some of these cryptocurrencies and the way they react because of rumors and comments and things like that, they'll move severely. Not always, but they have these really sharp, severe moves that I'd rather not get involved in. So when I see consolidation, I'm going to stay away from it. I tend to trade more when I get a clear breakout and an opportunity. So just something to look forward to in the future when we're trading some of these others. Now, I mentioned the S&P. I was going to show you an S&P chart here. This is the daily chart. This is MetaTrader, by the way. It's not my futures contract. It's not a futures chart like that, what you see in some of the other videos. So, but what I want to show you is, again, the price swing method and the ability to trail it higher, and which one is going to be more significant, some of these support levels. So this one is moving a little differently than the Bitcoin example that I was showing you. But for example, this pullback right here, there's a low. There's a the Morningstar pattern right here that it doesn't really bounce off of that. Like I refer to support and resistance very often. You'll hear me talk about this in the videos as a pocket of support or resistance. It's not always going to be an exact number. I will show you an exact number and how close it can actually get on. Bitcoin tends to do it quite a bit, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just going to be a pocket or a range. And then other times it will bounce right on those support levels. So, we've got a low, and it took a while later. This was a whole, this is a daily chart. So this is maybe, 3 weeks in here for it to come back down, test, and then settle and turn around and go right back up again. And then there's a spike low here. So is that significant? Well, up until it started to make this new move higher, if there wasn't anything going on and this was the current candle, well then yeah, that would be the most significant support level. But then I'd look at levels where there was multiple touches, something that would solidify a support level. And then here, this one tends to do it a little bit better here. And then this one seems to make sense. There's like 2-3 spots right in here where it seems to be sort of hovering right around that support low right there. And then over here, now I'm going to open this up one more click, and here you see it just a little bit better. There's a spike low here and then another spike, and that's about a week later, but you'll notice that these are pretty close. This is more significant to me than just this one candle spike low here. So again, if I was looking for clues that this was going to turn around and start selling off again and looking for the opportunity to maybe trade a new trend direction, yeah, that support low is pretty important. If that's all we've got over here to the right and it's not, we're only looking at maybe 2 candles after that spike low, but I still have to look at this support level right here. If a candle was going to close below that low, that spike low, I would also want candles to close below this support low here. That looks like a more solidified support low. Now, sometimes they're not going to make sense. Sometimes they don't look right, and sometimes you just have to wait. You have to wait and let more time pass. And even if it was going to pull back and take out both of these ranges right here, then maybe it's just going to have to be a new A high, B low, and then C, and then take out the new B low, and then we look for that new trend direction. I hope I'm not confusing anybody, but what I'm trying to say is that very often you'll hear traders talk about their expectations, right? And then somebody will make this negative comment and they'll go, okay, well, which is it? Are you saying it's going to go up or are you saying it's going to go down? Because you said both. Yes, we have said both. We have to prepare ourselves for both. We have to have a system that gives us a signal either way. And then when we get a signal, we want confirmation of the entry. We want specific entry. We want all of that to come together. And if one comes together but the other component doesn't, then we have to leave it alone. We just stay away from it. And even if it works, then so be it. That's the way it works sometimes. That's the way trading is. Sometimes you just have to pass on these opportunities, even though it works. But you don't get 100% confirmation, and you can't really determine what's going on at that time. So it might sound sometimes when you're listening to some of these professionals, analysts, things like that, and I'm not talking about just me, I'm just trying to cover my own self. I'm just saying that sometimes it might seem a bit confusing to you if you're new to hearing that kind of talk, where they're not really saying anything decisive. But that's because at times there really isn't anything decisive to talk about. There isn't enough information. It might take more time letting price and traders and the reaction and all of that sort of filter through, where it creates specific levels that then make more sense. So anyway, everything seems to be trending in one direction for the most part with a lot of what we're trading the last few months. So it's just a matter of leaving it alone. So this has hit 10,200 here on Bitcoin, and I'm going to finish here. But again, there's really no reason at this point to suspect that this is over with just yet. And again, if you're trailing it, we're going to have to just leave it alone. You're just going to have to follow it along, looking for these specific support levels that make more sense. Sometimes all you're going to get is just a spike low, and then you have to wait. So again, if a spike low was all I had, then of course I would be looking for a candle that would close below that spike low, right? If that's all I had, if this is as high as it went and it never went any higher, and then a 1 hour candle closed here with confirmation, then maybe that would be the high for a while. And it could be a few weeks, a few months before price would tear off higher. But again, in this case, it didn't do that. So I hope that helps with try to apply some strategies with identifying key support levels or resistance levels to use as stop loss placement.